Hey everyone, it's Danika White. I'm here with SurfinBerms. Today we're back in the shop to do an oil change on my KTM 350 SXF. Changing your oil along with cleaning your air filter regularly is one of the best insurances you can have to keep your bike running and avoid future issues. I do my oil changes every 5 hours. The KTMs actually are awesome because they come equipped already with an hour meter, so it's really easy to track kind of where you're at and what hour you do your oil changes at. You can even create like a little log so you don't get lost and kind of remind yourself after you've had a couple of rides where you're at. To get started, let me show you the tools you're gonna need. Okay, so here's everything you're gonna need to do your oil change. We've got a drain bucket for the used oil that's gonna come out of your bike. This one's a Matrix Concept drop pan, but you can totally use like an old bucket or ice cream pail if you have one sitting around. You're gonna need oil. Make sure to check your manual for the proper amount that you're gonna use. And then we've got brake clean, gloves, rags, and oil filter, and the proper tools for your oil filter cover and drain bolt. All right, so to get started, we're gonna have to take off the skid plate. What we have here is 3 8mm bolts. So we just need to remove this guy. Super easy as long as you don't tighten them back on. This is a KTM actual like power parts skid plate, so it's super easy to take on and off. It's really just built for this frame. Cool, that guy is off. And then what I do is I put all the bolts just back in here, and then I just put it to the side so it's out of the way. Awesome, so now that we have the skid plate out of the way, we're gonna grab the drain pan, get it ready to catch all the old oil. So make sure to take your white plug out of it if you're using this guy. Leave him there, and then just set it underneath the bike to start catching the oil. Okay, so next you're gonna find the drain bolt on your bike. This one's hiding right under here. It is a 13 mil on the KTM 350. One thing that you wanna make sure to do is to not drop the bolt into the pan. It's fine, you'll just have to fish it out of all the oil, and that the copper washer actually comes with you when you take the bolt off. So you can give it a couple turns with a wrench and then slowly just take it by hand. Grab that little copper washer and just thread it loose. There we go. So there's your drain bolt, and that's the copper washer that we were talking about right there. It came with it, so we're all good. Nothing has dropped in the drop pan. Next, we're gonna be getting at the oil filter. So we're gonna have to take off the oil filter cover to get at that guy. We're draining out a drain bolt right now. So just move your oil pan up a little bit ahead so it can still drain out of the drain plug and it'll catch whatever is gonna come out of the oil filter cover. On this guy, it is 2 8mm bolts. So we are going to loosen these up. You can just hand loosen them from there and just put them on a little paper towel without dropping them. Quick save. And that guy there. And the cover itself, you kind of just peel back. So it exposes the actual oil filter. On the KTMs, they're a little bit tough to get out. So sometimes it comes with the actual cover. Sometimes you can just fiddle it out. If not, you can just grab a little punch. Tap it in the side. And just kind of wiggle it out. This guy's just gonna be thrown away, so it's no worries that you just damaged it. And drop it in your can. On this bike that also has an oil filter screen, it's just hiding right here under your shifter. It's just a secondary way to catch debris and particles that are in your oil that might have come from runtime. So along with your oil filter, this guy helps clean. I change this one only every second oil change, and you actually can just clean it off. You don't have to replace the full unit. Sometimes it comes with the actual bolt itself. If not, you just lightly grab the edge of it with needle nose pliers and just shimmy it lightly out. And then it'll slide out. And right there is your oil filter screen. Next, I lay out all those parts onto the workbench. Then we can kind of see what's happening. It's a good thing before you actually clean them to kind of inspect each part and make sure everything's up and running smoothly. With this is a KTM drain bolt. It's actually magnetic, so it will actually catch all those little fragments and stuff that are running around in the oil. This is totally normal to have little pieces like this. If there was a big chunk on that or your oil filter or screen, that's a big red flag. Something's probably happening inside the engine that we would need to dig deeper into. This is the paper oil filter, same thing, super clean, maybe some small minor little fragments, but other than that, everything looks totally normal. And then here is the oil filter screen. We've got a few little pieces in there, nothing major as well. So what we'll do is we'll actually take this guy and brake clean from the inside out to blow all those fragments out. If this was damaged when you took it off, KTM actually sells a whole oil change kit that comes with all these items. So it's super simple. Like if you're like, I screwed this up, it's always nice just to have one sitting around in case something does get damaged. So let's dig in and clean these parts, and then they're ready to be installed again. We already have a new oil filter, so we're just going to dispose of this one. Then we're going to clean the parts that we have that we're going to reinstall into the bike. I like to make sure that you clean the drain bolt really well, just so you can actually see how much fragments are on each time. So take your little copper washer off, brake clean. I just use an old kitchen bucket to be a catch pan, and then just really clean this guy, especially in the threads. You can actually put your nail in the paper towel and into the thread so it actually grabs everything. And you can see what actually came off of there. Really get that guy good, make sure nothing's on it, and then just have a spare piece of towel sitting to the side so that can dry. Same thing with your copper washer. Clean that up. And place it to dry. With these pieces, we're actually just going to spray them to clean. You don't need paper towel just because you don't want the paper towel fragments in there. This one, spray from the inside out. Inspect. Lay to dry. This is your oil filter cover. And your 2 oil filter bolts. Place those guys there. And in between each time that you touch your oil and then have to touch a clean part, you can just brake clean a paper towel and actually rub off on your gloves, so you don't have to just keep changing gloves during the whole process. And then discard all the pieces and get your workstation clean for the next step. Okay, so I'm installing the oil filter screen back into the bike right now. So you're going to take your cap and the oil filter screen and actually just plug it right in. Kind of clicks once you get it. And we're just going to feed it straight into the bike. Then just tighten this guy by hand. And once it starts getting threaded on, you can grab your T-handle or socket and get it completely tightened. It's installed. So before I install the new oil filter, I'm just going to inspect the oil filter cover. On the cover, there's an actual O-ring to seal it to the bike. You just want to make sure that the O-ring isn't frayed or damaged, or when you're going to go put it on that it gets pinched. It's nice to have one of these just sitting around as a spare when you're going to do an oil change, just in case that happens. What would it cause would just be a slow leak out of the actual cover itself. So this guy looks good. Then we're going to grab the oil filter itself. Pull this out. I like to put a bit of oil inside the actual filter first before installing it. Just when you start your bike, then you know there's actual oil inside of it without it having to do a whole rotation before it gets oil. So it's just a little bit, just pour it in there. And just set that guy on your rag, and then everything's ready to install it back into the bike. Installing the oil filter, we're gonna grab this guy. You can kind of see how it's already saturated the oil that we put in there. So when you're installing it into the bike, make sure that the O-ring is going into the engine and not out. So we're gonna grab that and just push it actually straight in. You'll kind of feel that O-ring press in, and then the oil filter is actually installed. Taking the oil filter cover, this is where the O-ring can just get pinched. So don't come in at an angle, just straight up and down with that. And just lightly, you can kind of like wiggle yourself in, and you'll almost like press it right on. And it'll hold when you know it's in place properly. Grab your bolts. You can just hand tighten those guys in to start with. Make sure the threads are all lined up. Then grab your 8mm. Slowly tighten the top one. Not pressing or pinching anything. And then same thing with the bottom. It's super easy. Like if it's really binding up, then they're just not lined up properly. Moving to the drain bolt. Copper washer is still there, installed, both clean. And we're gonna find the drain, and same thing, line those threads up straight in. If anything's binding, it won't go in easy, but yeah, just hand tighten it into where you can. Then grab your wrench and finish that one off. Everything's installed back into the bike now. After everything's installed back on the bike and you have all your bolts in, we're just gonna clean it up before putting the skid plate back on. So brake clean, just on a paper towel, and kind of you can see where the oil has dripped down onto the frame, right on the oil filter cover, oil filter screen, and then where the drain bolt comes out of, just to make sure it's all clean. The dirt really likes to stick to the oil, so it would just build up all around those areas. All cleaned off. And then installing the skid plate back on, we had everything setting aside with the bolts in it. 2 at the front, 1 at the back. Line this guy up. It just fits right into place. Just grab your first bolt and thread it in by hand. That guy will hold. And same thing with the front ones. You can kind of feel where it is. I like using this skid plate because it is really lightweight and easy to take on and off, especially if you go riding and get lots of mud in it, it's easy just to clean. And then just tighten everything up. Here's it. My worst trait is loosening and then tightening each bolt just to make sure it goes on the right way, but good old righty tighty never lets you down. So the skid plate's all installed. Now we're just gonna fill the bike up with oil and you're ready to go. Okay, so now we're gonna fill the bike up with oil. So grab your oil and then find where your oil fill cap is. Sometimes it's not as accessible as this, so you can use a funnel to actually pour the oil in. So grab that guy, uncap it, and just slowly, you can rest it right on the edge and fill this up. This is a pre-measured amount of oil, so make sure just to follow your manual of how much your bike calls for. Awesome. So that is totally full. And we're just gonna grab our cap and seal that guy back up. And same thing, you can grab a piece of paper towel and just clean it with some brake clean just around the edges to make sure there's no oil debris seeping out. Awesome. So everything's reinstalled on the bike and the oil is filled. So what you're gonna do is take your bike out and run it for about 30 seconds just to get that oil filtering through the bike. Then on a flat surface, you're gonna have to lean your bike up just to make sure it's right straight up and down. And you can actually see the oil through your sight glass. Awesome. So once that's confirmed, you're good to go. The bike's ready, fresh oil, ready to go. There's nothing else that you have to do. So thank you so much for joining us for an oil change on the bike today. If you have any questions, DM us, drop us a message. We'd love to answer them. Or if you have any tips and tricks that you like doing, share them. We'd love to be able to share that with the rest of the group. Thank you so much.